In this video help, we're going to click on the menu and we're going to be using the Input Buyer Invoice. This is where we're going to edit all the data that goes into the invoice that is used both on the buyer print invoice and on the long invoice. In this particular invoice, this one has a header set up where there's a large area for the data for the address and your business. So this can be edited either on a word processor and pasted in here, and then it will be global through all the addresses. This is just a little different approach without an icon or a logo up on the screen. Just gives you a different idea of how it can be customized with the buyer information to the right side of the invoice. Now this can be on the left, the center, or whatever, depending on how you want it laid out. Now in the custom invoice, it looks very much like in the last video for the invoice print, where it has the same data, in fact actually identical information, because this is what is carried over to the print invoice, and the only one that will differ from this will be the long invoice, where you have to do a find in order to set up the invoice. But this has enough lines for most businesses to include all of the data that they want to for a small business where you're adding stuff for consignments. In this particular input screen, as you complete the invoice, you're going to have a place where you take payments, and you can have a number of different screen areas where you can add as far as rows to add payments if you do time payments. If you're taking everything on delivery, then you would have this. If somebody's doing a layaway and they want to make time payments, you have the space to take the time payments. In this area, you simply follow the thing, and it will already have the ID number that matches the item, not the item ID, but the consignor ID. And so you know where this is going as far as the linking. You would put in the date, you would put in the information as far as how much is due, you'd put in the payment by how much they're actually going to make the payment for, and then what will happen is this is calculated, so it would take out the amount that is being paid off the balance due until it reaches zero. This will shift from showing what is due to the amount that has actually been paid as far as the sum is concerned. And this will include the sales tax also in this information. Then what you would do is use the drop down over here to pick how it's actually been paid, either cash or whatever. And in some cases this can be line by line. Say for example you did the first one with a check and they split the payment on the second line to do a MasterCard or Visa or something like that. You can actually split it up. If you're going to split it up, what you would do is you'd show the amount paid, then you would take the balance due and put that in this next line and show the date that it's paid until it's all paid off as you go down, and that would give you a running record of balances due. You will see later on how there is a report that tracks all the balances due and highlights the individual places where you do have a balance due. I also included UShip, which is a company that will bid on shipping items that are large and you don't ship through the mail. There's also Square if you want to have your Square work in conjunction on your merchant account. Now it will not go directly to your merchant account without logging in, but once you log in you should be able to open it back up to that screen or use it as a web page right next to your app as far as adding sales and taking card strikes on the iPad. There's also PayPal, and you can have other payment or merchant account methods in this. There's also a place for Invoice Notes as far as the buyer, layaway, or whatever the situation may be as far as this is concerned. So you can actually add notes, and these will show up on the invoice information as far as how it was actually, if there was an issue or whatever for the invoice. Now I didn't cover these yet, but I'm going to cover them. These buttons have a jump up that will tell you what this is going to take you to, like the buyer's invoice print. This one will take you to the invoice list view, and this one will take you to the buyer information screen. This button here is when you're doing a line by line, and I kind of alluded to this earlier in one of the videos. If you need to know more information about the consigned item, you click this and it will pop up this screen. It'll show you now, in this case this item was sold, but if it was not sold, it would not have a sold date that was input here. It would also have the consignment date based on the consignment record if you needed that. There is a information as far as who the consignor is, what their ID number is, and what the item ID number is. So you understand when you look at the screen and you're putting in data for the row, what needs to go in here. But that should be taken from the tag on the actual item that's being sold. If you want to take it and you're missing a tag, you can still take the image of the item and look for it, and then or use this information based on what you know about the item to add the consignor ID and the item ID on this side of the screen. Because the picture is shown here, it's going to make it a little easier to identify the item. And if you're doing a reduced price thing like we showed you back in the consignment input area, you can see what that information is. This one is in a consignment for time payments as far as reduction by certain amounts over time, and these are the dates. Now you can obviously take a quick look at this, and if today was, say for example, September the 12th or 11th, you would know that you're on the line here to take a discount down to 1620. And if you're doing the discount, you can put the discount in this area here, as far as the discount is concerned, in this field, and reduce it down to 1620. So that's what would be taken off of the item. And you can see 90 days would be 14, and 104 would be 1260. And this would be changed as you're doing them. Now, if you forgot to put in the interest rate, or the tax rate, or any of this information, you need to change it for whatever reason, you can click on the portal, and what it'll do is it'll take you to the individual portal record where you can show this particular line item on the portal record, and there you can, and I'll just go ahead and do it so I don't have to try to explain it. This is the individual portal record that we covered earlier, and now what you would be able to do is add the tax rate if it was not already in there, and you can also mark it as sold if you want to from here. Now I'm going to jump right back into the invoice, and you can see if I jump into the invoice, I can still go ahead and in this record go ahead and click on the different items. In this case, they're locked as far as the sold item is concerned and the input. And the reason for that is that in a relational database, if I go ahead and create or add to this right here, or any of these fields right here, what it's going to do, it's going to cause it to make a new record over in the consignment area. And we don't want it to force to do that, so we'll just pop over there. If it was not already added, we can change it here to sold or whatever we want to change it, and like I said, pop right back into the invoice if we need to. If you have any questions about what I've shown you here, or you need more information, you can contact me. The last thing I want to cover is that when you're picking the buyer, you just pick it from a drop-down list, and in this case we have a selection of as many records are in there, and you can type the first part of the person's name and it will automatically show those in that group. So for example, if the guy's name was Ben and I put BE, it should only show things that start with BE or B. So it makes it pretty easy to find people in this drop-down list if you have a great deal of them. And as you see here, we add new records in this screen by clicking on the new record button, or we can go next record and previous record. So if I wanted to go to next or previous, I could click on it and it would show that record. And in this case, you see some comments and you see the actual payment as it's supposed to be entered in the system, showing the zero balance and what was paid to cover this particular invoice. And then you can see in this one where it shows the actual interest rate, and it shows that it is sold. And this one was shown as a straight price where it was paid for the price that was being asked. Unless you actually add a discount, that's what it would be. And as I stated before, you can always pop back to the portal and make buyer notes if you need to, if it was sold below the actual original sale price that was in the consignment ID record. Okay, if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead and contact me on Skype and I'll walk you through anything that you need to know. Thank you.